Howdy and welcome back to my Let's Play series. Hopefully this one will actually be episode 17. But... Lando? I've been hanging around, I've been calling this... Oh, before my waypoints got deleted, I've been calling this the Great Wood Isles. But I've been hanging around here for a while and slowly progressing forward. I think it's time for me to change of scenery again. And I've been slowly progressing enough that from the bow I can see another little piece of land up here. Now before I make this sprint from here to that land, I want to actually be able to control my boat from a centralized location. Because previously I had to cut out a whole lot of starting the loop to go forward and waiting until then this battery pack runs down. Waiting for that to charge up and repeat. I had to run down to the bottom deck to do that. And I'm now to the point where I'm good enough on resources that I really don't have to run around, or I shouldn't have to run around anymore to come back here and start the dredge, stop the dredge, move the boat forward, start the dredge again. And this would be a perfect place for some automation or computerization. So to that extent, I filled in this wall over here, because I was originally considering putting another window there, but if I really wanted to see what's over there, I'd just step out to the open deck and look left. So instead, I'm going to put a centralized computer system along this wall. I'm going to have a computer here, a modem here, some advanced monitors here, and I can just touch screen. I'll push a button, and that'll tell the computer down there to move forward 5. I push another button, it stops everything, or I push a third button, and it just progresses forward until it runs out of energy. And I'll have other buttons and displays for controlling the dredge back here from up front. So to get started on that, I actually need to have the computer system that I'm going to put there. So to do that, oh, I've already got glass planes. That's handy. So get some redstone, get some gold ingots. For the monitor, I need 15, so 16 or 15, 16 and is one with a spare. So for the actual computer, as such, and the modem, I don't recall off the top of my head, but I believe it has a redstone torch or something in it. If I can spell. Yes, it's stone surrounded by redstone torch. So I should already have stone cooked up over here. I hopefully store it up here with the rest of my red power project table, which is still invisible, going on like a dozen episodes by now. So, right, let's drop one redstone torch, and then surround that with stone. And I suppose I could have just grabbed that, but it occurs to me that I need more than one of those. So I'll make, let's go with 2 for now, or 2 more. Because everything that needs to receive redstone signal, or wireless redstone via the red net, has to have its own modem. So that gives me 3. So I can't go that way. I can hop down here. I'm leaving the and pop it to the right side of this. And do the same for the dredge on the back. And you're gonna annoy me, or I'm gonna forget about you, and you're gonna kill me. in this case, I'm going to put it on the front. Should work. I don't know. We'll see. And finally, put an advanced computer. I don't remember if you take up a whole space. You seem to. So, put a panel back here, and then a wireless modem there. And then I just fill this up with, apparently you only place on opaque blocks. Okay, and I've got a spare that I could probably find a use for. I'm not overly fond of it cutting out right here. I might decide to do something else here. I mean, if I really wanted to, I could just break that like this. I'll play around with it, see which one I like the best. But I'm going to cut out here and probably spend some time programming this to actually get it to have the functionality that I want. I will come back when I have the completed code, but it's rather boring to watch me code because I'm not really, I'm okay at it. So I will be back once I've got some programming done. Okay, here's what I've got so far. This is my current code for moving. Really simple, probably could be done better, but basically it does a for loop for 5 steps, and each step it pulses the redstone wire at the back on and off twice. On for half a second, off for 5 seconds, on for half a second, off for 1 second. So the code that I've now got for to get this to listen to another computer is I basically put that move program into its own function inside of here, and I put it into a while true loop. So if this is true, then it does the for loop from 1 to spaces. Spaces is a variable I will set later in this program. The actual pulsing code is pretty much identical. I just now have it prints a line every time it pulses through it goes through the loop, saying that it's on iteration I of spaces numbers, and it also sends that back via RedNet. Then once it's through, it sets spaces back down to 0 and sleeps for 1 second. The other function I'm doing here is a listen function. Very first thing it does is opens a RedNet connection to the modem to the right, and then inside of that there is a while true loop again, where it is constantly listening for a RedNet receive packet or message. And once it receives that, it sets the ID and text. ID is based on a numeric code. Currently seems to be set on the number of computers that I've set in the world, so I've got 3. So the bridge computer is now set to 3, this one's set to 2. And a text. If the text is nil, then the only time that I've received that so far is when I had a time to live or timeout on the receive. So I've left that in there just to catch that. If else the text contains or move, then it cuts off move and space and adds the remainder of that to the current spaces variable, and then it prints that out for debugging right now. I suppose I could actually make that a little bit more easier to debug. Else, if the text is actually halt, then it sets spaces to 0. And I'm not sure how that one got through. And if it's neither of those, then it prints out a message, unknown message, and then it sleeps for the minimum amount of time it can and goes back to receiving. And I only had that there for some debugging I had, but it's probably not a bad practice to have. This is actually the main of the program. First thing first, it sets the spaces to 0. So very first thing the program starts, and it needs to move 0 more spaces forward. Then it starts a uh, parallel processing of move and listen. This is very important because I spent about a half an hour trying to debug this. But you put the function name move. You don't call the function. If you call the function, for example, move open parentheses, close parentheses, it thinks that you're trying to return the string name of what function it wants to call. So, or something. So it actually calls move before it actually calls the parallel wait for, in which case the first one is the only one running. You do not want that to be what you're doing in most cases, so don't put the parentheses here. Just type the name without the parentheses of the two functions. Then then it will call both of those functions in a parallel process. And since both of those are infinite loops, if I ever get past that line of code, I've got a print to let me debug that. So save, exit, and startup, and nothing seems to be happening. That's because both of those loops are started, but I've taken out most of the noisy debug code. So at this point, it'll only do anything once you send it a message. Now, I'm still working on this. For example, if I wanted to say, computer, move the boat forward 3 spaces, this computer will somehow magically decide that that's what I want to do, and send over RedNet the message, move space 3. I send that. If I run down here fast enough, I might be able to catch it. But yes, spaces was set to 3 in the listen function. And then the first time, the move did the loop of 1 of 3. Now it's doing 2 of 3. And I took out the RedNet cables here so I could test this without it actually, moving the boat forward. And that's 3 of 3. So if I run upstairs and ask it to move forward, say 4 this time, now listen should be setting spaces to 4, which then the moved function goes, hey, that for loop of increment I from 1 to 4 actually makes sense, or 1 to 0 doesn't make sense. Now if I really wanted to, and I hurry, which I might not be able to make it, but if I send it 2 messages like that, and it's still in the process of doing it's already in the process of trying to increment through a for loop, in which case spaces was set to 2 because it was currently set to 0 at the end of the for loop. And then it was set to 3 because I told it to add 1. If I wanted to keep adding numbers to that spaces, I'm relatively certain that the for loop can handle that because it just basically I'm moving the goal post, as it were. So it keeps working to try to get to whatever the spaces number is, even if that spaces number keeps increasing. I think. Now that may just be, I may be mistaken because it looks like the first time that was called, it should have been 1 of 2. So it may have decided that whenever you create a for loop, that number is set in stone, that you can't keep increasing it. In which case I could simply go back to a while loop and do a conditional inside the while loop of if, but yeah. I was hoping to do this the easy way, but it looks like it's probably meant to catch people that are changing their conditionals on purpose. So that's not a huge issue. That just really just means that I can't keep stacking how far forward I want to go while it's running, which is part of the reason I already have the in that case, the halt may not work as either. So, minor issue, because I was putting the halt there as a And in that case, since spaces looks like it just copies the number for the for loop and doesn't increase it, what I could do would just be something as simple as if I is greater than spaces, which should only ever happen if spaces got lowered or changed. Then break, and that should use the keyword break to get out of that for loop. If I'm not sure if I have that conditional wrong. Let me see. I'm gonna cut out here while I double check that conditional. For some reason it's not liking that. I'll be right back in just a moment. Okay, I believe the issue is simply that it doesn't like a capitalized break. So, a lowercase break, and it seems to be working now. So to show you that, let's start up again. And if I don't fall off the ladder, I will show you the halt command. So let's say move forward 1,000 spaces. Like, wait a second, that might be too much. Let's immediately send a halt command. So we go down here. So first step, 1 of 1,000, and it is probably entirely appropriate to do the Dr. Evil laugh afterwards. Then it receives the halt. So stop whatever you're doing, and it sets spaces down to 0. So the loop, it looks like it was probably in the process of the second iteration of it whenever that caught. So that was set to 0. It continued at that for loop, and the next time it ran again, it stopped, as you can tell, because it's not ran a 3 of 0, which would be the case because it looks like as soon as the for loop starts, it doesn't care what the end goal is. I will probably adjust that off camera and make it so that it does care. And the easiest way to do that would just be simply to replace that for loop with a while loop and just do my own incrementation. You know, what people used to do back before for loops were put into a lot of programming languages, so not a huge deal. So without a halt, it just runs through the for loop. Okay, well, I'm going to get off here and make that change real fast. I'll hop back on once I do that, and then I'll probably cut out again so that I work on a user interface for my bridge console. See you in a bit. Okay, real fast. Just change the for loop to be its own while loop with an increment. Basically, I'm just handling the initialization of the I and incrementing it myself. So the big difference is I can change what spaces is, and the for or my while loop will respect those changes. It won't just keep going because it was 4 or 1,000 whenever I started. Sorry. So once this finishes, or really doesn't have to, I can show you the minorly edited code. Basically, this was the for loop. Now it's just initialize I as 1, do a while I is less than spaces. Technically, this should never ever run, but I left that in there for just a second, and now I'm incrementing I myself. Okay, well, that was simple enough, but that should now mean that I can increase spaces or set it down to 0, and it'll handle that intuitively. Okay, well, I'm going to go work on the bridge console's user interface, and I'll be right back. Okay, now the moment of truth. I'll be honest, I haven't actually tried this yet, so I may get a little bit of egg on my face. But using the touchscreen, I should be able to right-click on this command, and that send a command downstairs. So, beginning of the first loop downstairs, you should get moved 1 of 5, and that should keep going for the remainder of the loop. Now, if we need to stop this, right-click on halt, and that'll send a halt command down there to stop it early. And as you can tell that we haven't moved since then, it took it. So I can get it started again, and that's going to restart it back at 1, 2, 5. So if I were to keep doing it, that would it would keep wanting to do it for 5 more times. Okay. And I'm stopping it there so that I can, start the dredge again. Looks like I'm probably going to have to restart the client because the moving... Did I move 6 forward? Oh well. Counting is hard sometimes. Yes, I did move 6 forward. Oh well. There's a reason I'm making the computer do this for me in the future. I'm going to move my golems and then restart the computer, or restart the client so that those blocks come back. And although that doesn't look all that interesting, that's actually the first time I've gotten the dredge to work off the back. So halt should stop it, and raise dredge. I'm getting the confirmation, so it received the signal and is using it. I do currently have a small issue where if I have all 3 of those computers run these programs off of startup, for some reason Minecraft is using about a gig more memory to do that than if I were to just load up the Minecraft normally and start the programs one at a time. So until I figure out what's going on there, probably I'm not going to have that automatically started up. So as a result, probably you're still probably going to see this with a blank screen sometimes, just because I may have this one start on startup, but just have the other 2 be, I don't know, the programs have to be put into listen mode by just going to them. I don't know. Not fond of that idea because the whole point of this was so that I wouldn't have to keep going back and forth. But until I figure out why the programs on startup use more memory than the programs when not on startup, I just, yeah. Okay, and I'm not sure if I've shown you this code yet. Real fast. The main loop, it listens for, well, first things first, it initializes all these variables and then draws a screen. Drawing the screen is this function right here, which is just a whole lot of commands to make it look like this. Now this bottom line right here is a string. It's not a literal string. So whatever the last message that this computer receives over RedNet is in echo. So it pastes that in echo. Inside of the very bottom here, it receives a monitor touch, in which case it gets, I pass that on to the touch function with a single variable that is the y-axis in characters of the touch, or of the click, whatever you want to call it. So since these directly correspond with the y-axis that I position these at, if you right-click on the command on the line that has move 5 right here, it will recognize that you're on line 2 and will send, or sorry, line 3, and send the phrase move 5 to computer 2. Conversely, if you click on row 6, it'll recognize anywhere in that row and send the dig command to computer 0, which is the dredge at the very back. That's really and I just handle events that I don't recognize by printing them. which is why whenever that was running and I was trying to Control T it, both of those key presses are events, so yeah. I could probably remove that, but I may find more uses for events in this function. But anyway, there's the 3 programs that I have that if I could figure out the memory issue, I could automate my entire boat with. So I'm going to post the 3 programs to I don't know, some sort of drop web service, and put that in the link in the comments of this video. But, well, not a whole lot of building in this episode, but I don't know, I'm happy with what I've gotten done. Be happier if I could figure out why it's taking a gig more of RAM to whenever it starts up, but forward progress at least. And I'm not sure if I explicitly mentioned it, but I originally put all the modems down on the block right here. They have to be attached to the computer. So minor thing there if you're like me and haven't really played around with wireless modems. But, well, anyway, thank you all for watching, and see you next time.